As you prepare for retirement, it's not just about having a retirement account. It's about having the right types of accounts and knowing how to use them. So in today's video, we're going to start by discussing the 4 accounts that you should consider having as you prepare for retirement. And let me tell you, account number 3, even people with millions saved don't even realize it exists. And in my opinion, it's one of the most flexible accounts that you should consider having. And account number 4 provides the most tax advantages. Then, just because you have all of the accounts doesn't mean that you're all set. I can't tell you how many people walk into our office with the different accounts thinking that they've got it all figured out. But then we show them how they could be potentially paying more in taxes, or they're missing key income strategies. And this is one of the biggest shifts that we make with new clients, going from just having accounts to ways to use them strategically. And so after we discuss the 4 accounts, we're going to discuss ways to use them strategically to help lower your taxes and to help maximize your income. My name's Scott Sierens. I'm a certified financial planner where we help people retire every single day. Not only just by looking at how much they've saved, but also showing them ways to use these accounts to help generate the most amount of income in the most tax efficient way. Because even if you have millions saved, taking an inefficient approach can cost you more than you think. That's why after we talk about the 4 accounts, we're also going to talk about the tax impacts of the different accounts. You see, there's tax impacts not only when you put money into an account, but also when you take money out of an account. And so after we go through the 4 accounts, we're going to talk about the tax impacts and how to use them strategically to help reduce your taxes and help increase your overall income. So the first account that you should consider having is the workplace retirement account. And the main reason behind this is if you're working for someone, there's a big chance that they offer an employer match, meaning you put money into the retirement account and they're going to match up to a certain percentage. This would be your 401ks, your Roth 401ks, your 403bs, your 457s. The upsides to these types of accounts is the employer match and that you can that they have higher contribution limits than other types of accounts. Now, the downsides might be that you might have limited investment choices, or if you've left employers, you might have some old 401ks that you've left behind and that you're no longer paying attention to. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. I'm going to guess if you're nearing retirement, you already have a workplace retirement account set up. The strategy becomes, are you using the right one? For example, are you putting into your 401k when you should be putting into your Roth 401k? And we're going to talk about that in the second part of the video. The second account that you want to consider having, especially as you're moving into retirement, would be IRAs. That could be your traditional or rollover IRA, as well as a Roth IRA. So some upsides to these types of accounts, first off, is that you have potentially more control over the investments that you're able to put into them. You have more options to be able to put into them. The second upside is that you can consolidate old accounts into one IRA. Here's what I mean. Maybe you have 1, 2, 3 old 401k accounts at different locations. Well, you can simplify life and simplify retirement by bringing those old 401k accounts into one IRA. And here's the key tip, just bringing them into one IRA. You don't need 5 IRAs at 5 different institutions. That's not diversification. In fact, it could just be duplication. You just need one IRA, one institution, and then diversify within that IRA. Now, another key tip is that if you don't have a Roth IRA, you would want to get one started as soon as you potentially can. And the reason for that is the 5-year rule. Now, we're not going to go in depth on the 5-year rule today, but you have to understand that the Roth IRA, if you've never started one before, has a 5-year rule. And if you have a Roth 401k that you plan to roll over after retirement, then it's really important that you get that Roth IRA started as soon as you can. Now, the downsides to these accounts is that they do have income phase outs, meaning if you make over a certain amount of income, you may no longer be able to put money into the accounts as it's originally intended, especially the Roth. If you make over a certain amount, you're just no longer able to put into the Roth. Now, there are other strategic ways to be able to do so, but just understand there's income phase outs. And then the other potential downside is that there's lower contribution limits to these accounts. However, if you have the capabilities based on the income that you have coming in, this just gives you an additional tax efficient way to save for your retirement. Plus, depending on other accounts that you have at your workplace, if you have that Roth 401k, then starting these types of accounts like a Roth IRA could be even more important for when you do retire. The third account type is a brokerage account. In my opinion, this is one of the most underrated flexibility accounts. You see, most people, even with millions saved into their IRAs and 401ks, don't even recognize that this account exists. And to me, this is like your tax strategy and early retirement lifeline. So just like your IRAs and your workplace retirement plans, you can hold investments in a brokerage account. Now, when we get into strategy, which is the second part of the video, we'll talk about how this account is taxed. But here's some of the upsides to this account. First off is the flexibility of it. There's no age restrictions of when you can put money in, and there's no age restrictions of when you can take money out. Also, if managed properly, long-term capital gains are taxed at a much more favorable rate than your ordinary income tax rates. Now, some downsides to the account are that your interest and dividends are taxed on an annual basis. This is an account that you want to use to help control your income in retirement, especially if you're going to delay Social Security or potentially be doing Roth conversions. This account may be your penalty-free way to help you retire before age 59 and a half. Let me just walk you through an example that we see a lot when meeting with new people. And let's just, for example, we're going to say Mary. So Mary came to us and she had a 401k, an IRA, a Roth IRA, and a brokerage account. And Mary thought she had it all figured out because she had all of the accounts that we've mentioned so far on this list. And she thought, okay, now as she's going into retirement, she's just going to start making withdrawals from her 401k because that's a retirement account and she's in retirement. However, that's not always the right strategy and could potentially cost Mary more in lifetime taxes than if she would take a different approach. So after we talk about the fourth account, we're going to talk about strategy on how to use these accounts in the most tax efficient way and to help increase your future income. The fourth account is the HSA or health savings account. This is the one that I feel is a triple tax advantaged account. Let me just explain. You get a tax deduction for putting the money in, it grows tax free, and then as long as you use it for qualified medical expenses, you can use it tax free as well. So lots of upsides with the HSA. The downside, I guess, is that you have to use it for qualified medical expenses. But most likely, if you're near or approaching retirement, or as you go in retirement, you'll probably have some medical expenses somewhere throughout life, which then just makes this a really powerful account. Now, you may or may not be able to contribute to this account, and it all depends if you have a high deductible health plan at your workplace. So you may or may not be able to put money into this account. So now you've seen the accounts, you might be thinking that you're going to add an account, or maybe you have the accounts and you're thinking, well, then am I okay? But if you're not properly using them together in a strategic way, you could potentially be paying more in taxes than you might have to. Or you might be missing out on some other opportunities. So now that we know the accounts, let's talk about the strategy behind utilizing these accounts. First, it's important to understand how the accounts are taxed. Now, we talked about 4 different accounts, but from a tax standpoint, those accounts are going to sit into 4 different tax buckets. The first bucket is the taxable bucket. That would be the brokerage account. Also, if you're looking at your accounts, it might say individual or joint or trust. The next tax bucket is the tax deferred bucket. That would be your 401ks, 403bs, 457s, and IRAs. The next bucket is the tax-free bucket. That's the Roth 401ks, the Roth IRAs. And then the last tax bucket, well, it's kind of its own bucket there, which is the HSA. So from a tax standpoint, how are each of these buckets taxed? There's different ways and different tax benefits potentially when you put money in, and then there's different taxes that you might incur when money is taken out or each and every year. So let's start with the taxable bucket. Again, this would be your brokerage account, individual, joint, trust types of accounts. When you put money into that type of an account, there's no deduction that you get. You're using after-tax money. Then it's just important to understand that this bucket, each and every year, you could potentially pay on interest, dividends, and gains. Interest and dividends, you would potentially see those each and every year. Gains would just be only if you were to buy and sell in that account. Again, that's the account that I said is the most flexible. That's the brokerage. Now, the retirement, your workplace retirement accounts or the IRAs, that could sit in two different buckets. The first is the tax deferred bucket. This would be your 401ks, your IRAs, 403bs, 457s. When you put money into this bucket, from a tax bucket, you get a tax deduction. Then when you take money out, you do have to pay tax, and you're going to pay tax at your ordinary income tax rate. Now, the next bucket, again, could be some from your workplace retirement account as well as the IRA accounts that we were talking about. This is the tax-free bucket. This would be the Roth 401k, the Roth IRA. When you put money into those different accounts, you're not getting a tax deduction. But when you do take it out, guess what? It does come to you tax-free. And then the last bucket there, we talk about the HSA, which has that triple tax advantage because when you put money in, you do get a tax deduction. And when you take money out, that's that other tax advantage that it comes out tax-free as long as you're using it for qualified medical expenses. So let's go back to our story about Mary and talk about some strategy that she could utilize, and then we'll talk about some additional strategies that you may want to consider as well. So as I had mentioned, Mary said, hey, I've got a brokerage account, which sits in this bucket here. She says, I've got a traditional IRA, that sits in this bucket here. I've got a 401k, that sits in this bucket here. And she had an Roth IRA. So she says, I've got a lot of the different accounts that you mentioned. Do I have it all okay? Oh, and I'm going into retirement. So I'm just going to start taking from my retirement account first. So first things first, what we did is we helped Mary roll the old 401ks into an IRA. You see, in that tax deferred bucket, there wasn't necessity to have multiple different accounts. And so she could take old 401ks and bring them all into one IRA and then help to make sure that that IRA is diversified. Then we helped her understand how to utilize her accounts to keep her taxes, help keep her taxes lower throughout her lifetime and implement different strategies. As I mentioned, Mary said, hey, I want to start taking from my retirement accounts first because they're for retirement. Now, taking from those accounts, she would pay tax on all of the dollars that she took out. However, she did have a brokerage account with a healthy amount in it. And so one of the things that we said is, hey, let's consider starting here first, keeping your taxable income then very low or a lot lower than it would be if you were to start from your workplace retirement plans first. And as you're doing that, we can actually do what's called a conversion at lower tax rates, where we take money then from this bucket here, those IRAs and 401ks, and move them into the tax-free bucket. Now, when she does that, she'll have to pay tax. But again, that's why we're starting here first, keeping tax rates low. And then as she moves money over into that tax-free bucket, she's potentially doing it at a lower rate, then helping to lower her taxes over her lifetime. Now, if Roth conversions aren't of interest to you, then something else that you may want to consider is you still have all these buckets. You can use them to help take amounts of income out to keep you under certain tax brackets. So you're taking from different buckets throughout the year, and what it does is it helps you go up to certain tax brackets, but maybe not jump over into a new tax bracket. Since all of these are taxed differently, you now have different accounts to go and take from that are all taxed differently. So you can take money out to get you up to certain tax brackets, but not go over. And then the last thing, and boy, we've got stuff all over the screen now, is that if you plan to retire early, this account here, that brokerage account, as I mentioned, it's pretty flexible where you can take money before age 59 and a half and not worry about any sort of penalties. Now, there is the rule of 55 when it comes to your 401k, but make sure that you talk to your 401k provider because they all have different plan rules on how you can utilize the rule of 55. So hopefully this video helped you see that there's reasons behind different accounts that you want to set up to help you prepare for retirement or an early retirement. But it's not only just having the account set up, it's then the ways that you also utilize the accounts that are super important. And as you can see, it can get pretty complex. So whether you're still setting up some of these accounts or you have them already set up, something that you might find very useful and helpful would be our free guide to unlocking hidden tax savings opportunities. It's going to help you take a look at all of these accounts and understand if there are opportunities to help you lower your long-term taxes. What if it could help you save thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars in taxes throughout your lifetime? You can get it at maxretirementshow.com/taxes. Again, that's maxretirementshow.com/taxes. Also, if you found this video to be of value and benefit, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. That way you get notified as we're coming out with new videos each and every week.